Two guys, Smith and Wesson, had an idea, and they started out with a gun that shot a little thing called a rocket ball that's about this big. In less than 30 years, we had this fire-breathing monster shooting something like this. Let's get down a rabbit hole and take a look at some pretty interesting kit that showed up in this shop for simple conservation because we believe in doing the maintenance. All right, so here's a little better close-up of what we're looking at here. This is a Volcanic Pistol that fired a very, very unique piece of ammunition that I'm going to get to here in just a second. But it operates with a toggle link. Those of you that have ever had an 1866 apart, and I'll show you that here in detail. Firing pin in two pieces, and then the links which collapse to open it up. Smith and Wesson started out with this idea, as far as I can tell, and then they took off in the through-drilled cylinder rolling white patent direction. Oliver Winchester got involved with this whole mess and wound up in the lever action rifle category here. So this is an 1866 Winchester, and I'm going to reposition here and show you something. I'm going to bring this over and show you something here. If you look at these two guns, and that's damn near the same gun. This may be a handgun, that may be a rifle, but here's the thing that's really going to blow your mind. Shell lifter, shell lifter. Now, the rocket ball was a lot smaller, but there's the two shell lifters. Hammer, hammer. It's the same thing, but it's scaled up. All right, let's move these over here and just get them out of the way. Okay. Here's a nice one right here. Firing pin. And it's a two-piece firing train, as we'll see here in a moment. That's a two-piece firing train. That actually winds up going up inside here, pardon my fingers. Now, if you look at the one off the Volcanic, it's just a smaller copy of it. It's the same gun. But here's the one that's really going to blow your mind. This is the toggle action from an 1866, and this is the toggle action from a Volcanic. It's the same thing. So the two guns are identical to each other. This is just two jumps up. And I'm going to tell you, in the 2 days notice that I had to film this, we did try very hard to get an actual Henry in here to show you the intermediate jump. Even the lifters for the breech blocks look the same. I mean, it's the same thing. They just converted it over to run on cartridges. I think that's pretty damn cool. One thing that they did do, though, when they went to the Winchester, there is a pretty significant slot cut right down the center of this that the follower moves back and forth in, and it lets dirt in. It was a problem with the Henrys, and they made that go away, and they went to a solid magazine tube. At the end of the day, they're both toggle action guns, which is an inherent weakness. There are a whole lot of places that slop can creep in, here and on this pin. You're asking those pins to take all of the annular loading. You saw this problem also, even Hiram Maxim stepped in it on the MG08. Same deal. The Lugers like that, anything that's got a lot of moving parts in it. Cue the arrival of a gentleman by the name of John Moses Browning that got rid of all this slop. Yes, he did. I'm going to cover this up and do it over the top of it. Is why everybody says these guns are weak. And here's why they're weak. This 73 is so ratted out, but if you watch this thing when it's closed, all of this is free to move. There is slop. It's free to jump all over the place. This thing is completely ratted out. And why? Because these pins are loaded in shear. Even though this block here, they're trying to go metal to metal. All of this is loaded in shear, not compression. And it's a lot of moving things that just sit there and carburet them out and wear out. Okay? So the ultimate extrapolation is you just make the pins bigger and bigger and bigger. And when you make the pins bigger, you wind up with a rolling block. This is Bruno's rolling block right here. And you can see that the pins in this rolling block are half a freaking inch in diameter. The firing load comes back, causes this, this block to try to rotate. The hammer keeps it from rotating, so the firing load disappears into the frame through this great big pin. This was a successful single shot gun. However, it wasn't going to make it into the multiple shot world. Now we've got the 1886. John Browning's involved, so let's look at this in an oblique. You've got these locking blocks that are now sliding up and into the back here. So now the load comes straight back from the bolt thrust and right into the frame. It's not coming through any pins, and that's what allows you to graduate up to the big boy cartridges. You can get up into the big stuff, and then ultimately you get this 95, and it's running 7.62 by 54R. So this locking system was actually strong enough to make the jump from black powder into smokeless, whereas this toggling system was never going to make that jump. The toggling system never even made the jump into big bore black. This is a rocket ball. It looks a lot like a mini ball in that it's got a hollow base, and you got to remember this is from right before the American Civil War. So this is 1855, 1856-ish. They put an anvil inside this thing to have something to crush this fulminate pellet on. They put a cork ring in here in order to hold the fulminate in the center, and then they put a cap over the outside of it to hold it all together, and they filled this up full of black powder. However, remember, all of that is happening on a footprint that's only that big. So there is a limit to the amount of powder you can put in this, 4, 5, 6 grains. And that's probably a good thing, because I'm going to show you something here, and we're going to adjust the focus on this as I come in. So fly on up and get me. Yeah, there you go. That's good right there. So you see that shiny spot right there? That's it. That's all you've got to seal the rear end of this thing off. So it's kind of like a revolver or a, a black powder revolver or a cartridge cut off sharps. You have a mechanical sealing of black powder gas, and that does not work. More modern ammo that came after it, this entire cartridge blows up like a balloon and seals off the back end of the chamber, and you have zero leakage. But this is mechanical, and I'd be willing to bet you that this is a hot, sticky mess at the end of one magazine. I'd be willing to bet you this gun would run one magazine and stop. We're not going to be able to find out here, because I'm going to finish conserving this thing and get it out of my shop, because it's worth more than the 4 automobiles I own combined. Yikes. All right, here it is, fully conserved, and I'm going to let it sit here for a couple of seconds while I say a few things, because there are very few good photographs of this gun done. I will put the high resolution stuff. I have a tape measure here that's graduated in hundreds and thousands. So if you want to blow this up, I've got high resolution photographs of this that I'm going to have out there. Maybe other people have those high resolution photographs. I don't know. But let's cover a couple of things here really quick. This is the nose cap and the follower. When this follower is pushed up into the nose cap, it bumps into this plunger. It allows you to rotate at 90 degrees and load. That's the magazine spring that goes up in there. This is the back end of the firing train. This is the front end of the firing train. These are the 2 toggles that lock it together. This lever lifts into this block and allows it to move up and down. That's the cocking piece. I mean the trigger guard / cocking piece. Hammer, trigger, which functions as a sear, mainspring, and then various pins, screws, and whichevers. Get a good look at it, because when we get done putting this thing together, it's going to be gone. There's a courier waiting to whisk it away as we speak. Yeah, so in case you were wondering why the lights are a little bit weird, we got work going on in the back. We're building a test stand for a gun back there. So we got the overhead lights off because Katie's over there checkering, and I don't want her to be into all that glare. Let's put a Volcanic together, shall we? Well, the front end of this thing's kind of odd. It's got a part in here that rotates. This piece rotates, you can see it. And I don't think it's supposed to go all the way around. And it looks like it's just beat. It almost looks like it was mushroomed, like a rivet in there. And I'm going to be straight up and say I don't have the guts to find out how the hell that was put together. It's not what I was here for. This whole thing was lightly conserved. A little bit of oil down in there. The whole thing here was lightly conserved just to, it didn't have a whole lot of rust in it, but it needed checking off. Down inside, up inside the bolt, just like on a 66, there was a lot of rust in there. So we'll just rub a little bit of this oil up inside. A little bit of that. So this plunger goes up inside there. And that's... So that in there, right there, we got that going on. I don't know if you can see that coming in and out. So while that's on that, I know this is out of focus. I had to come up high to get it. Okay. Oh boy, I'm having a low dexterity day. There we go. Very, very fine set of threads here. That just spins on like that until that draws up tight. And then what I believe is going on here is that this, see, that was never supposed to rotate. That's exactly why. That's supposed to be up there like that. And then that's supposed to be in here and snap down and lock it all together. So let me get all this right here. There was a little blend there because I had to stop for a second. This gun wasn't right when it was delivered, and there was something broken in it, and I got it fixed now. It just needed a little tweak. Anyway, when this plunger comes all the way forward, it pushes on this lock. Let me get this where you can see it. There's a lock that moves in and out. You see it right here at the end of my index finger? So what that lock is doing is engaging a notch in the forward end of this barrel shroud right here. So this lock sits up underneath this like this. Okay, so when you got this lock unlocked up here, it pushes up. This whole thing is allowed to rotate. So let me put it together here and I'll show you what I'm talking about. That goes up in there. Magazine spring is going to come in front of this. So the follower, when I got this gun, the follower was in backwards. The follower was pointing. See, it makes sense that the spring's like this because you want to be able to pull your finger forward like that and pull it. So that's why that makes a little bit more sense. Let's see here, get a little bit more light on this. All right, that goes there. The spring goes down inside of it. And then this whole thing slides up in like this. Okay. All right, there we go. Bang, that goes on. Now, there's a large screw and a small screw. The screw with the large head is going to go in this hole right here. And what this is going to do is keep the follower from coming out when the gun's open. And I'll show you what I'm talking about here. Gotta have my fingers in the way. This is an awful small screw. Not a gun that was designed to be taken apart in the field. And not even particularly a gun that was designed to be taken apart on a bench. So that's that. And then over on this side, in this hole right here, is the screw that retains the front end. So let's see if we can get that up in there. Get it up in there. Yeah. There are some days my fingers feel like they are about 8 inches square. This is one of them. All right, here we go. Get that going. All right. So that's going to go. There's a little dimple in the nose of the barrel. And this screws into that little dimple. So the way this is supposed to work is this. This slide comes all the way forward, lifts that lock out of the way, and then this rotates to the side here, And then that big screw there prevents that from flying out. And it's loaded this way. You drop the rocket balls in, you fill up the magazine, rotate this, and the follower drops. That's how that works. That's how it works on a Henry also. And now I've got this back to where it's working right. The Volcanic was really kind of the beginning of multiple repeating firearms. There were ones before it. There were a lot of them after, but this is the one they all came after. I'm not going to shoot this gun. I'm not even going to pretend. Its owner kind of gave me a wink and a nod permission to do it, and I'm not going to go there. There's a point with this old gear where they jump from being old and rare over to being artifacts, and this particular piece of hardware is well into being an artifact. So I'm not going to shoot it. The 1866 that I was displaying with it is sitting back in the conversion pot right now, having all the mung knocked off of it. And that needed doing too. So I'm not going to shoot this. And I will tell you, at what, 56 joules of energy, most modern air rifles will outrun this thing. It doesn't really have a sealed breech. So I'm really, as I said before, one magazine full, and this thing is going to be a hot, sticky mess. But still, you gotta start somewhere. And you gotta admit, that is pretty damn cool. And as always, it's been a pleasure. This is an update at the back end of the Volcanic episode. I want to just emphasize to everyone that the move to take the primers and the anvils off of the same channel has been floating for a while. We just had some recent events that have sped that timetable up, but there's nothing else going on there. All the content's going to be there. Everything's going to be there. Just bear with us, and we will make it worth your while. To my patrons, thank you very much, because you're the only way I'm going to be able to do this. Continue watching the primers. That's fabulous historical content. You need to go look at that. You guys have probably noticed that I'm not a historian. Who knew? However, we do get to work on some pretty cool stuff over here. So just know that we're working on it. It was going to happen anyway. We just got sped up a little bit. Thank you. And as always, it's been a pleasure. Thanks for hanging around for the update. Actually, we don't need the other side. If this side is true to itself, then all I got to do now is get the tops straightened away, and the other side's going to wind up getting cut off as waste anyway. So there doesn't even make any sense to consume the knife time. And that, boys and girls, is how that is done.